Hi, everyone, and welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. We have a segment queued up from 1986, a big year for the film industry. That's when the Pixar animation studio first launched. Tom Cruise was fawned over as Maverick with the debut of Top Gun, and James Cameron released one of the top sci-fi films of all time, Aliens. Now, what was being discussed in Ontario's Parliament was far from science fiction. Let's take a listen.
Oral questions. The Leader of the Opposition.
I want, Mr. Speaker, this afternoon to return to the what is becoming more apparent, Mr. Speaker, day after day, a rather large cover-up of the UTDC transaction. My question, therefore, is to the Minister of Transportation and Communications. He will know this morning in the Public Accounts Committee that that committee was studying the UTDC matter and heard before it from Kirk Foley, while at the same time you and your ministry were at estimates in the General Government Committee. At that time, Kirk Foley acknowledged that a report had been prepared for you last fall, for the government last fall, on the future of UTDC, a report which we understand indicated quite a good future for UTDC, and concern over the government's dismantling of UTDC, and a suggestion that UTDC not be sold, as was the intention. You, at the same time, in another committee, denied ever having seen the report. Are you this afternoon prepared to acknowledge the existence of the report, apologize to the House for not having distributed the report and made it public, and are prepared to give it to us this afternoon?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think possibly the Leader of the Opposition has done us both, and particularly his critic, a favor. In fact, the critic this morning asked a very similar question, and of course there's a problem with both public accounts and estimates ongoing concurrently. Your critic asked about an uncertain title report from an uncertain, unnamed author and an unnamed date. Now that you've identified the author, perhaps you could provide me with the title and the date of the document you're referring to so that I can locate it. In response to your critic's question, I'd be happy to deliver it to him. He asked that question this morning. I answered it, and I said to him that I would attempt to track it down. Now that it's no cover-up, the question was asked in estimates this morning, and we said and guaranteed that if we could locate the author, the title, and the date, and you've just provided further information, we would do that.
Supplementary.
Nonsense.
A point of privilege.
Just to correct the record.
Order. Order. Well, order. 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 That could be a point of personal explanation. It certainly isn't a point of privilege. So, order. Order. Supplementary.
Might I say that the minister's answer indicates either the total disorganization with which he and his ministry have handled the sale of UTDC, or in the alternative, unparalleled arrogance in violating every speech his premier has given about open government. Now, my supplementary question to the minister is this. The report, as my colleague told you this morning in committee, was a report on the future of a report to the Government of Ontario on the future of UTDC. It was prepared by Kirk Foley, who was then running UTDC. UTDC has been in front of the Public Accounts Committee, and you have been asked for information in this House now for almost 1 full year on UTDC, and you and your government have hidden a key report outlining the future of UTDC and which relates directly to all the questions that have been asked. My question to the minister is this. Are you prepared? Are you prepared? Are you prepared to acknowledge this afternoon? Are you prepared to acknowledge this afternoon that on the closing of UTDC, you received $10 million cash, and that by the end of today, by the end of tomorrow rather, you will have paid to Lavalin $21.2 million
Minister?
and gotten 10 back?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition continues to mix apples and oranges. There is
Order.
Mr. Speaker, his question is as empty as his benches. There is incoming revenue from old TDC on the one hand, and there is incoming revenue to the province on the other. The question that was asked of me this morning was whether or not I was in possession.
Order. 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 Any brief?
The question regarding the one piece of information that may or may not have been made available, and obviously he has it, and his member rightfully asked for that information this morning. It was a document that I am not aware of, was not aware of, until the member from Mississauga East brought it to our attention this morning. He did not state the author, was not quite certain of the title.
Rocking the side.
You included this in your question. I'm going to include it in my answer. And until we were given, as I stated to him on record and answer, that when we have located the report, he will be the first to receive it.
Final supplementary.
Transportation, who sold UTDC, finds the report filed by the president of UTDC on the future of UTDC 1 year after it was written and 6 months after the announcement was made that it was being sold. When the minister then finds the report, he'll be kind enough to share it with us. Let me say to the minister, that outlines the attitude, and let us put it on the record.
Order. Final supplementary.
Final supplementary. The Attorney General of this province has just shouted across the floor that UTDC itself was an outhouse. Let the record show that's the Attorney General's opinion. The only thing, do you support that gratuitous insult, that arrogance shown to the workers at UTDC in Thunder Bay and at Kingston, outlined by the Attorney General? And does that explain why does that...
Order.
You get very antsy when we talk about you. Does that explain...
Looking for a stage.
Careful, we'll ask you questions about women's issues or abortion if you're not careful. Does that explain why you accepted...
Order. Order. I thank the member for Sudbury East. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I think the member for Sudbury East heard more of the question than perhaps he'd like to answer it. You know, when I think of all of the questions that have come from the Leader of the Opposition on UTDC, and I think about Lavalin, and I think about their employers, the employees, and all those workers who are dependent on an ongoing and financially viable operation, why the Leader of the Opposition constantly asks his questions and his comments in such a negative and predicated on failure constantly.
You're making it worse.
I'm answering your question.
New question, the Leader of the Opposition.
We're now in day 3, and the minister is continuing to cover up the sale price. We'll be back to find...
New question.
Speaking about... on this question of cover-ups, the tenants of Ontario, Mr. Speaker, are eager to know what rents, in fact, they are going to be facing as a result of Bill 51. So let us try for a third day let us try for a third day to find out from the minister, in a simple skill testing question, what in fact rents the tenants are going to be facing. Now, as a result of the questions I've been asking the minister, Gardner Church's assistant deputy minister alleges that on the facts I presented to the House, that my figure of a 22% increase is wrong, that it could only be 15%. We spoke this morning to Fred Peters, who the minister will discover is your executive director of rent review and your expert on Bill 51. Taking Mr. Peters through the fact scenario, Mr. Peters himself would acknowledge that the rent possible is 19.25%. May I invite the minister to select one of the following: R 22.25%, Mr. Peters 19.25%, or Gardner Church's 15%.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker,
Minister?
I couldn't believe that the member of the opposition, the leader of the opposition, would have the gall to even stand up today to ask me any question in regard to that. But if the report in the Globe and Mail admit that he conceded that it is wrong figures, I'm appalled. That he would use the tenants of this province, Mr. Speaker,
Order.
to use in these statics of giving erroneous figures, which if the Globe and Mail is correct, if the Globe and Mail is correct, just to manipulate and frighten millions of tenants in this province. You'd be ashamed of yourself.
Somebody wrote that answer. It's you they're frightened of, Alvin.
Order, please. Order. Order, please. I'll just wait. I'll just wait while members have their conversations across the floor. I'd like to remind all members that interjections are out of order. They are supplementary.
Well, might I say to the minister that 3 days ago we gave you, the minister, this fact scenario, and I want this afternoon simply to ask you this question. Do you agree with Fred Peters, who works for you as Executive Director of Rent Review, that the
These are difficult.
that under the scenario we presented, the possible rent increase is 19.25%. Do you agree with your employee, Mr. Peters?
Minister? Order.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition brings hypothetical questions to us every day. And then he wants an answer, and he goes and searches out for certain answers, Mr. Speaker. I still feel I don't know how I can trust the figures that he brings forward, as I think I should stick to the fact, Mr. Speaker, that he should maybe present it to me, and I'll write to you. I cannot teach you Bill 51 in question period. Don't know.
Yes.
Order.
I want to agree with the
supplementary.
minister. He certainly cannot teach anyone Bill 51. I want to agree with him on that. The minister is right
Final
about that in
supplementary.
silos. I want to say seriously. I want to say seriously to the minister. He and his leader are doing a lot of saber rattling about having their way on Bill 51, or the bill's going to be withdrawn. Now, seriously, Minister, if you are putting that sort of proposition, it is only fair and responsible for the opposition parties to try and determine on behalf of the tenants of this province what possible rent increases they are facing as a result of Bill 51. Now, we have checked out a not unusual fact circumstance with your ministry, with Fred Peters, the head of the rent review program. And Mr. Peters has acknowledged to us that on his calculations, not ours, the possible rent increase is 19.25%. My simple question for the minister is, do you agree with Fred Peters in your ministry that on this scenario under your legislation, rents can go up 19.25%?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. 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 A point of order?
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, I'm amazed
What's
at
the
the
point of
license
order?
this leader of the opposition has. I've been tossed to it 3 or 4 times for doing a hell of a lot less than that. He never asked.
Order. 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 New question. Order. What's the point of order?
A question was asked by the Leader of Their Majesty's loyal opposition. The government members, the Liberal members, all yelled, and you waited till they tied down. Now we're ready to hear the answer from the minister.
They interrupted. You can't do that.
Well, I appreciate the help. Order. 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 I appreciate the help of the member for Nipissing. However, it's up to the Speaker to make decisions at question period time. However, if I'm sure by the attention I'm getting now, that means that we're going to continue to get that attention for the balance of the question period. We'll get a lot of questions in, therefore I'm sure we'll have time for a brief response by the minister.
Response?
Order. Yeah.
Sit down. Mr. Speaker, our study at the Ministry has shown that rents will increase far less than the previous bills that were in. We have seen increases, Mr. Speaker, up to 40 and 50%. We're seeing an average increase of almost about 4.7%. So if the Leader of the Opposition is bringing in figures here which are wrong, which he admits, just to frighten the tenants of this province, I think he should act in a much more responsible manner.
New question. Order. New question, the member for York South.
Mr. Speaker, I had a question for the Premier, who was here, and it was my understanding that he was
You were going to ask a question.
going to be here. I will, for your permission, Mr. Speaker, I will... there he is. Oh, he's here.
The member for York South. The member for York South.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Premier. It concerns equal pay. The Premier will know that we've had discussions about this in the House on Tuesday, and there were reports in the press today that the House Leader has been saying that it's his intention, if amendments are carried in the committee, it's his intention to pull the bill. I'd like to ask the Premier if that is in fact the policy of the government, and specifically I'd like to ask the Premier what is so wrong with our party moving amendments that are entirely in keeping with the accord which the Premier and I both signed, which applies to both the public and the private sectors, which he will know, and why isn't the legislation that is now before the House and now before the committee going to do anything for literally hundreds of thousands of nursing home workers and hospital workers and other people who surely the Premier would agree are entitled to their claim to equal pay for work of equal value, as well as those who work directly.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure I read the same thing. I apologize for being out of the House, by the way, to my honourable friend. I am not sure I read the same quotation in the paper that you did this morning. My impression was that he said that was one of the options in the circumstances. As you know, the House Leader, being an expert on parliamentary procedure and with advice of a number of eminent authorities, is deeply concerned about the precedents been set by the committee, overruling the advice of the chairman in that particular regard. And from a procedural point of view, and in keeping with the traditions of this House, is of very great concern to the House Leader, as indeed it is to this government. Now, with respect to your second part of your question, it is this government's intention to proceed on equal pay, as we said we would, in the public sector and then to the broader public sector and to the private sector as well. It is done in an orderly way. It has been thought out, I believe, carefully. And I think that commitment is clear and there for everyone to see. And why it is necessary for members opposite to, in our view, take advantage of their obvious superiority in terms of numbers in this House, but violating the tradition that's so fundamental to this legislature is to us a very disturbing proposition. We are going to solve those problems. We are working on those problems and expect to present that in the not-too-distant future.
Supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's not deal in technicalities and let's not play politics with this issue. Let's look at it hard and straight with respect to the issue. Let's look at the issue. What is wrong? What is wrong in substance? In substance, what is the Premier's problem with the idea of extending legislation which applies to the government directly and let that legislation apply to women who are working in nursing homes, women who are working in hospitals, and women who are working in municipal governments and for municipal services? What's the problem with that in substance? What's the big hang-up over there? Don't you guys believe in equal pay for work of equal value? Don't you people understand that that's the principle that you signed, that you said you were in favor of? What's your hang-up? Don't deal with the technicalities. Deal with the substance. This is the only bill we have before us. Surely you're not going to deny us, as members of the legislature, the right to amend legislation that's put before the House.
Mr. Speaker, one of the realities is when one is entrusted with the responsibility of governing, you have to concern yourself with technicalities and laws and the implementation and the responsibility therefore. Now, my honorable friend, if my honorable friend wants to accuse me of playing politics, I think on this particular issue, I think he should follow his own advice, particularly before he puts a question of this type, which he knows, as a respected member of this House and someone who understands parliamentary tradition, that what happened in that committee was a very serious violation of our traditions. And a member from Sarnia who exercised his position of responsibility in this House, in my opinion, in a very thoughtful and even-handed way, I believe came to the same conclusion. I am sure your advisors on parliamentary procedure that you're surrounded with on both sides of you there would give you the same advice in their quiet, dispassionate moments, which I know are rare in both of their cases, but they do have those moments, I'm aware. What I'm telling you is we are proceeding on those issues. You know how we are proceeding. We have shared that with you and all members of the House, and we believe we are proceeding in an orderly way to cover the public sector, the broader public sector, the people you speak about in your question, as well as the private sector. And I think that you have to have respect for the government's responsibility of introducing this legislation, bringing it in, and you have to have respect for the traditions of this Parliament as well.
Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier knows perfectly well that what he is doing is using gobbledygook to cover up and to hide and to obscure an issue which is very simple. It's very straightforward. It has to do with the commitment of the Liberal Party to a document which he himself signed and to a principle which is of importance to over 2 million women who are working in the province of Ontario. That's the issue. That's the issue. And the Premier knows that's the issue. I'd like to ask the Premier, what seems orderly to you is excruciatingly slow. We've seen no bill on the private sector. There's been no discussion of any legislation dealing with the private sector. We haven't seen it. Are you going to pull the only piece of legislation that is now before this House dealing with equal pay for work of equal value? Yes or no?
Premier?
I say to my honorable friend that I'd never accuse him of being simple. But this is not a simple issue, as you know, in its implementation and the regulations and the laws pertaining thereto. A great deal of thought has been given to it by this government. I don't know how many times you'd like me to restate my commitment to the principles and the implementation, and we are doing that in a thoughtful and orderly way. You're entitled to stand up and make all the speeches you'd like to about how it should go quicker, or it should have been done last year or 10 years ago, or anything else you want to. That's a legitimate area of your responsibility, and you are exercising that responsibly. But when you abuse the power of the opposition in this House, violating long-standing traditions, then I suggest to you that you want to rethink what you are doing in this particular circumstance.
New question, the member for York South.
Speaker, new question to the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations. The Minister has inspired several leaks over the last few days which have caused various effects which my colleagues will be discussing later on in the question period. But I want to just ask the Minister a question about the latest leak. After what must have been a fascinating cabinet meeting yesterday, apparently your response to the insurance crisis is apparently going to be to appoint a commission to study the commission whose report we had last spring. A commission on a commission, which even for the Liberal government is almost a record. Presumably that commission is going to produce a white paper, Mr. Speaker, which we can then study. I'd like to ask the Minister, is he aware of what this delay is costing the consumers of this province? Is he aware, for example, that if you take the 1983 figures, all auto insurance figures combined, Manitoba average premium $269, Ontario average premium $368, a $100 difference, a 37% difference, over $500 million in excess premiums, if you will, when you compare province to province. Are you aware that you're sticking the consumers of this province with a $500 million bill
Minister?
because of your inability to deal with the question of insurance in the province of Ontario?
Mr. Speaker, as usual, the leader of the third party goes off on his particular pet hobby horse, dealing with nationalizing the insurance industry in Ontario. And I can say to you, we are
Tall in the saddle, Bob.
We are dealing with the insurance problem in a rational, organized, and responsible manner.
Supplementary, the member for York South.
Well, if you're going to ride a horse, Mr. Speaker, I'd much rather be riding this one than the one the minister was riding yesterday. That's all I can say. I'd like to ask the minister a question. Is it the government's intention? Dr. Slater produced his report. The government then said there was going to be a period of consultation after the report. The minister has been on record on many occasions as saying the government was going to be taking steps once those consultations were over. What is the government going to do about the insurance ripoff for the drivers of Ontario? Just what are you going to do for the drivers?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I would suggest to the leader of the third party that if you just have a little patience, you will see what our response will be.
Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate all the condescending advice I've received today. It certainly does my soul a lot of good. But I'd like to just ask the minister this final question. Is he aware of the cost of his delay, of his prevarication, of his vacillation, of the government's inability to deal with an issue that is affecting drivers and consumers right across this province? Are you aware of the extraordinary difference in premiums that are being paid in the province of Ontario today as compared with those that are being paid in provinces that have public insurance plans? Are you aware of those differences, and how do you justify the $500 million ripoff, the at least $99 a year ripoff on average of every single motorist in the province of Ontario because of your inability to act to deal with a private profit insurance monopoly in the province of Ontario?
Mr. Speaker, if I may, I would like to just give the honourable leader of the third party another lesson in the insurance industry. The member will know, if he has read anything other than his own propaganda, that for every dollar of premium that is paid in Ontario for insurance, it cost $1.31 in claims. For every dollar of premium, it's $1.31. If the government got into the insurance business, there would not be one less accident, there would not be one less repair, and there would not be one less employee working doing it. If anything, bureaucracies being what they are, there would be more. The only difference would be there would be a profit motive. If you're charging $1 and paying out $1.31, there is no profit. The only profit is in other aspects of insurance. So what you're suggesting is that everybody in Ontario, whether they drive a car or not, should be subsidizing those people that drive cars. That is a position that we are not prepared to take.
New question.
Order. Order. The member for Simcoe Centre has a new question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Tourism, Recreation and Fire Sales. Mr. Minister, last Thursday in this House you announced the possible sale of Moonachie Lodge. And now that a week has gone by, would the Minister share with this House further details on the sale of Moonachie Lodge? Specifically, when will the deal be signed, and how much money did you actually receive for the resort?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I think I stated in my statement to the House that as soon as the signing took place that I would table all the documents relating to Moonachie Lodge, and I'm quite prepared to do that. Quite prepared.
Supplementary?
Well, supplementary, Mr. Speaker. It's quite clear now. Can the Minister confirm or deny that $3 million was paid for this $33 million resort, and that a further tax holiday... Oh, listen to this. It gets better. Oh, it gets better. It gets better. This is the good part. $3 million. $3 million was paid for this $33 million resort, and that a further tax holiday at the expense of the Ontario citizens was granted in the amount of $30 million, which would actually mean that you paid someone $2 million to take Moonachie Lodge off your hands. Can you confirm that?
Minister?
First of all, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member doesn't know what he's talking about, and I must tell you, you're very much like your leader. When you quote figures, I don't put much credibility into it, I can tell you that. And I can tell you this, that the taxpayers of Ontario will be very pleased when I table all the documents in this House.
New question, the member for Algoma.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question of the Minister of Energy regarding the PCB spill into the Mississauga River north of Iron Bridge and Thessalon yesterday. A major fishing and tourist area. This spill took place at Ontario Hydro Wells Generating Station. It's the second PCB spill by Ontario Hydro within 2 weeks in Northern Ontario. Is the Minister aware that 30 litres of liquid that was 70% PCBs, that's millions of times more dangerous than the spill at Chapleau, escaped down an open drain into the river? And could he explain why Hydro ignored the Ministry of Environment's recommendation of weeks ago that Hydro not replace PCB-filled transformers in that area as long as the drain was open into the river?
Minister?
Good question.
Mr. Speaker, yes, I am aware of the spill, and of course it's under investigation. I'm very anxious to know just how the spill took place and the kind of precautions that are taken and the ones that should be taken. And of course, the Minister of the Environment is examining the situation, and I can't report to the House right now, but I shall when I have more information.
Supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that the Minister is going to investigate the situation. In his investigation, will he determine what steps Ontario Hydro is going to take to ensure that these kinds of spills do not occur anymore, and to ensure that the Ontario Hydro follows the recommendations of the Ministry of Environment? And is he going to give us a report on what compensation Hydro will give to the tourist outfitters along the Mississauga River who are going to be adversely affected if the fish take up the PCBs?
Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I certainly would confirm to the member that I'm very concerned as relates to the threat to humans in the area particularly, and secondarily as relates to the fishing opportunities there. Of course, it's always of grave concern when we have those kind of spills in and around our waterways. It seems that the little information that I do have, that it was a spill when a crane was hoisting a transformer and struck a rock and burst open and the spill occurred. I'm also very anxious to find out the kind of precaution that's taken by the workers when a transformer is being handled full of PCBs, and as to whether there shouldn't be more caution taken in the handling of such devices. But I certainly will bring a full report back to the legislature, Mr. Speaker, as soon as I have it.
New question? The member for Sudbury.
A question for the Premier, Speaker. Premier Peter McBride, who's the Public Relations Director for Falconbridge Nickel, has been quoted as saying that the company doesn't see any need for a public inquiry into the corporate activities of Falconbridge Nickel. Is Falconbridge's attitude towards a public inquiry yours?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, to the honourable member, I don't know Mr. McBride, and this question was raised a week or so ago by the member from Sudbury East. I am meeting tomorrow I believe, with Mr. James from Falconbridge, and I will be making some my own determinations about what his plans are.
Supplementary?
Well, Speaker, to the Premier, I think that what concerns the people of Sudbury and the people of Ontario is not what Mr. James's plans are, but what the government of Ontario's plans are, and the Premier of Ontario to speak up for the people of Sudbury region. Now, it's believed by the union that in past years that the company has purchased Russian and or Cuban nickel on the London Metals Exchange, and there are questions about their activities with regard to the purchase of Kidd Creek and how that affects the layoffs in Sudbury. And it's believed that those purchases that were made on the London Metals Exchange, of course, were made on the backs of those workers in Sudbury. So I ask you again, if you're not going to have a public investigation, a public inquiry into the activities of Falconbridge Nickel, are you prepared to tell this House then that that Falconbridge Nickel is not buying Russian or Cuban nickel on the London Metals Exchange?
Premier?
Not at all. It's my understanding that they did, in fact, buy some nickel on the metal exchange. My understanding was, and I don't know all of the facts, that there was some sort of a rational explanation in the sense that they were to meet a short-term demand situation. I'm under the impression it's not ongoing, but I could be mistaken, and obviously those are questions I will be trying to get an answer to. If it is my honourable friend's suggestion that we have a public inquiry into Falconbridge, then stand up and say so. If that's your position, then well, you didn't say that. You asked us what we were going to do. I'm telling you that I'm obviously concerned about the viability and the plans of Falconbridge, as I am of Inco and many other companies in Northern Ontario at the present time. And I'm very concerned about the prospects there. And I can, but as I said, I'll be having a conversation tomorrow, and we'll see where the situation is.
New question? The member for Bellwoods.
Yes, I have a question for the Minister.
Order. The member for Sudbury has already asked the questions, and now it's time for the member for Bellwoods.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Consumer Relations with respect to the leak 2 leaks ago from the Ministry to the Toronto Star. 2 leaks ago was Saturday, I think. The story that reads, the Ontario government will introduce legislation establishing private pension inflation protection at a level of 60% of the cost of living, the CPI. My question to the minister is that leak as false as all the other leaks? Or is it really true that the Cabinet was sufficiently bird-brained to approve a policy that will allow 40 cents on the dollar of pension contributions to be eaten away by the ravages of inflation?
Multiple choice.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the members of the third party are constantly referring to the Toronto Star as the source of their information, and if they want to govern their responses on that basis, that's their business. As far as I'm concerned, when I introduce legislation or make statements in the House, you'll then have an opportunity to question me on those particular policies. I think it's counterproductive to get into a debate about things that appear in the paper.
Supplementary.
So, I assume the answer was the first one, that it was as false as all the others, and the minister, in his condescending way, refuses to discuss the consequences of his actions. So my question is the minister aware that as a result of your leak, that Abitibi Price has broken off negotiations with the Canadian Paper Workers Union, and you'll be aware that this is industry trend-setting negotiation, that Abitibi Price have broken off negotiations on the grounds that they will not proceed to negotiate pension benefits until the minister clarifies his statement of his intention to bring in inflation protection at a level of 60%. So maybe now you'll answer the question.
Minister?
The statement that you refer to was not my statement. It was a statement in the paper of someone's interpretation of what they thought we might do. And that is nothing that I can respond to.
New question. The member for Brantford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Housing. And it's the same question I asked the minister 3 days ago. The minister knows that he has the responsibility, the province has the responsibility for the enforcement of the Building Code Act. There is a large apartment complex under construction on the waterfront in this city that does not have the benefit of a building permit. Will the minister not live up to his responsibility and either ensure that an investigation is undertaken or ensure that a building permit is issued on the Wangandansky project at 350 Queens Quay?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I've asked my staff to monitor the situation very closely, and when I have a report on the matter, I will report to the member.
Supplementary?
I'm very pleased that the minister has a report, but we checked just before question period. The construction is continuing. The project still does not have a building permit. The building commissioner is furious, and I'd remind the minister that when a couple of island homeowners wanted to do repairs on their houses without a building permit, a stop work order was issued, and the buildings were ordered demolished. Now, how can the minister, my question by way of supplementary, is how can the minister have us believe that this Wangandansky project is not receiving special treatment when clearly the Building Code Act is not being applied equally in that case as it is in every other case?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker,
Order.
I've been informed, I think last night, that the city had issued a stop work order on the project, and as soon as I said I got a detailed report of what's going on, I let the House know. I would also like the member, he stands in the House each day, Mr. Speaker, and make these sweeping allegations, implying that there is somehow interference and some illegal things that are going on. I would like, Mr. Speaker, for the member to stand up and give evidence, concrete evidence, of what he's trying to indicate.
You. If I could ask the members to control themselves. I know they get a little heated at times, but I think it's time to calm down and let the member for Essex North ask the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of the Environment. The Ministry of the Environment has been aware of the proposed garbage incinerator in the city of Detroit since September 1984. And no doubt the Minister was aware that construction would start in May of 1986. Why did the Minister wait until April 1986 before raising concerns on this issue with the representatives from the state of Michigan?
Minister?
Well, I read somewhere in the paper, Mr. Speaker, that apparently this was known back in, or there was some reference to it back in 1982, which is, 4 years ago at the present time. And I know this member is asking the same question, basically, or making an assertion that a federal member has made in the federal House or elsewhere. I think what's important, because the actual hearings and the actual proceeding with the incinerator and final approvals and so on took place relatively recently, that when it was clear that they were moving in that direction, certainly I indicated very clearly the opposition of the province of Ontario in very strong fashion. And, well, that's not true. The member for Riverside can now wax eloquent on this, but he's simply inaccurate in what he is saying. I know that there are some...
Riverside had no question. The member for Riverside wasn't asking the question. Supplementary? The member for Lakeshore?
Mr. Speaker, I have to say to the Minister that the facts are very clear. On September the 24th, 1984, his ministry, and it wasn't his ministry then, received a letter informing them of a public hearing into this incinerator. There was no response. And despite the fact that this minister took office in 1985, it was not until April 1986 that, in fact, concerns were raised. And I'd like to hear from the minister, does he not agree that it's shocking that the city of Detroit only has to hear of Ontario's concerns by way of the media? And why has the Ministry of the Environment of Ontario not directly approached the city of Detroit, the builder of the incinerator, now that their delay has obviated all opportunities of legal redress, and asked for scrubbers?
Order. Minister?
Well, first of all, I can't answer the question for what happened previous to when I was a minister. That's the way it was then. I can't answer that question, and you'll have to ask a previous minister. But in regard to the present circumstances and how they developed, I think it would be inaccurate for anyone to suggest this government has not indicated in very clear terms to our counterpart, which is the state of Michigan, which has certain regulatory authority over this particular incinerator. On many occasions, the Premier of this province has drawn it to the attention of the Governor of Michigan. I, as the Minister of the Environment, through my office, have drawn it to the Governor's attention and to the Department of Natural Resources. We have indicated clearly that we are prepared to intervene in the most effective way in the courts, if that is necessary, and to go back into history to determine whether historically that would have had an influence is interesting speculation. But I'm going to tell you, the state of Michigan, the U.S. EPA, and the city of Detroit all know the position of this province, and I'm confident that with the continued persistence of this government, with the assistance of the federal government, which is on side with us in this regard, along with the people in the Windsor and Essex area, that I think we're going to have the kind of impact that is going to be necessary, because obviously the best available technology should be applied. This has consistently been my position.
New question. The member for Scarborough Centre.
For the Minister of Education.
That a blue velvet suit?
The Minister is aware that the Prescott-Russell County Board of Education is electing an English Language Education Council. For his information, it's ELAC, under Bill 75 this fall. They wanted to hold elections through three regional general meetings to ensure an appropriated representation from all areas of the county. However, Mr. Minister, they were told they could only have one general meeting to elect the members. Mr. Mr. Minister, would you please explain to me the rationale for telling the board that they could only have one general meeting rather than 3 regional meetings?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to be distracted from my reading about the last days of the Ancien Régime. You really were ready for a change, but at any rate, I mean, I tell you, if you haven't bought it, it's worth it, if only for the first half, which deals with...
This is not the appropriate time to try to sell books. Please answer the question.
That the leader of the opposition had a furniture fetish while he was a minister, as well as when he was leader of the opposition. I didn't realize the leader of the opposition worried so much about the leather chairs in the cabinet office. At any rate, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, to my honourable friend, well, Mr. Speaker, I have aroused the interest of the member from York Mills, about whom there is much...
Now, order. Would the member have a supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, it is indeed interesting to know that the Minister of Education, like his colleagues who he sent across this province to explain Bill 75, is unable to answer a simple question. Perhaps he might like to try the supplemental. The question is, Mr. Minister, why would you not allow the Prescott-Russell County Board to have many regional meetings when you have given permission to your own Board of Education, the Renfrew County Board, to have more than one general meeting in its area?
Says about Betty. Tell us what the book says about Betty.
Mr. Speaker, I say to my honourable friend, it's Renfrew. And I warn him that some of these people say that Bill Davis was the fall for the last gang. Let you not be the fall for the next time. Now, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say to the honourable member and to his colleagues in the official opposition, those elections are taking place because this government, under the leadership of this Premier, has made a commitment on the part of this legislature to minority language education, which is going to give Francophones in Ontario and Anglophones in communities like Prescott-Russell the right to have control over their own schools. We have set before the people of Ontario various opportunities to meet the requirements, and I'm pleased, Mr. Speaker, to report that those elections are taking place, by and large, with much enthusiasm and with very considerable effect, despite the naysaying of the honourable member.
The member for Windsor-Riverside with a new question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question to the Minister of Health. I'd like to read 2 paragraphs from of a letter from a Dr. Elliot Lyons, an obstetrician, to his patients. The fee for uninsured services for obstetrical care is $500. You can choose to pay this fee in advance or installments of $100 after 16 weeks, $200 after 32 weeks, and $200 after delivery. You can choose to pay for uninsured services as they occur. These services include a fee of $10 per visit, a fee of $15 per page for each form or letter, $15 for phone call reordering prescriptions, a fee of $30 for 10 minutes or part thereof for telephone counseling, a standby fee of $100 for first trimester, $200 for second trimester, and $200 for third trimester. I'd like to ask the Minister, does OHIP pay for anything of this service?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, we had extended discussions yesterday with the members of the college, and I do know that with respect to people asking for payments in advance of delivery of service, there is a particular concern. I would like to receive a copy of that letter and advance it to the members of the college so that we can investigate further what is inappropriate in that. I find, for instance, Mr. Speaker, some concern when I hear of physicians charging for standby before services are delivered, and in fact, I would think on a logical basis that people were to take on a patient who was expecting a child, that certainly one would expect to have insured services include the availability of a physician to deliver that child.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Dixon, the registrar for the college, is quoted in today's paper saying that they can't do very much until you, as the Minister of Health, clarify this matter. When are you going to clarify this problem, and when are you going to eliminate the practice?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think it's fair to say that Dr. Dixon has indicated that he would like the rules surrounding the operation of OHIP to be clarified, and I don't disagree with the registrar of the College of Physicians and Surgeons. I think if people look at the history of the OHIP system, they will realize that what has been done is that we have adopted a fee guide that has really focused more attention in particular on the money side of it than it has on defining what services are delivered. I certainly take interest in Dr. Dixon's suggestions, and in fact he's made them to me yesterday in the meeting, and I do know, Mr. Speaker, that not only is Dr. Dixon interested in a better definition of what is provided as services, but so am I, and so I understand are the members of the association, of the Medical Association of this province.
New question? Order. Member for Carleton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question to the Premier. Premier, I'm sure you're well aware of the grave concern you've raised out in the province, particularly amongst most sporting groups, as to your intent in Bill 38. They see a commitment by your government as being tremendously reduced. A program that was well-founded, you're going to damage irreparably. But in an attempt to override that fear that's existing out there, you've said in reply to one of the constituent groups, please be assured that this change does not reflect any lessening of the government's commitment to recreation and cultural activities. Thank you for writing, this government will continue to support the cultural and recreational life of the province in a way which fully recognizes their major role and contribution. Do you stand by those comments, Mr. Premier?
Premier?
I certainly stand by every nice comment you made just now.
Mr. Premier, I find it very strange that you can stand and say that you stand by that when the premier figure skating event is being held in Ottawa Carleton in February of next year, and you and your government have offered the Canadian Figure Skating Championships the munificent sum of $5,000 to assist them. Are you planning on assisting them more, Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I want you to know, the honourable member, I'm always happy to assist him in his constituency problems. I must say that I am not familiar with the request for how much or what all is involved in the situation. I'll certainly discuss it with the minister, who is sensitive to all of these requests. My honourable friend is somewhat exercised about a bill that the Treasurer has brought in to regularize some of the transactions that have gone on here for some time. As you know, it was your government that froze the capital grants and played grants to cultural and sporting activities like a violin, would turn them down between elections, turn them up at election time, paper the province with checks. We have done more. Look, I'm telling you, we have done more in this government to support culture and recreation and the arts, and let me tell my honourable friend, if you don't believe me, just go and ask the communities who are seeing a new responsiveness from this government to supporting an extremely important part of this great province.
Order. The member for Beaches Woodbine has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. My question is for that popular minister today, the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations. On Monday, Mr. Minister, you told me that when the Ontario Racing Commission made its decision on Sunday racing at Greenwood, you would be prepared to play a role if the decision did not resolve the residents' problems of inadequate public input and no consideration of the impact on the community. Well, Mr. Minister, since the decision has come down and is in favor of Sunday racing, but completely ignores these two problems, will you, in the interests of fairness and open government, bring in amendments to the Racing Commission Act immediately to guarantee to residents their democratic right to have their concerns considered before any approval of Sunday racing for Greenwood can be implemented.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member will know that the matter is before the courts. The residents have gone to court, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment on that specific aspect of it. But what I should point out is that the residents had an opportunity to be heard by the Racing Commission. The Racing Commission allowed them to come in and was prepared to accommodate them. What had happened is that there was a question as to whether or not the Racing Commission had jurisdiction not to hear the residents, they were prepared to do that, but to hear the matter that they were bringing up. And that is now being determined in the courts.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Minister, are you aware that in the explanatory notes to its decision, the Ontario Racing Commission justifies Sunday racing at Greenwood because it is, quote, overwhelmingly in the best interests of the Ontario racing industry and its 46,000 employees, end of quote. Mr. Minister, since this statement clearly demonstrates that the present commission is interested only in the welfare of the industry and not in the welfare of the residents, will the minister also amend the Racing Commission Act to replace the present one-sided Ontario Racing Commission by a more representative body to ensure that residents' concerns will have equal consideration?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if I may, we have a situation, if I can give you an analogy. If you had the Stanley Cup playoffs being played at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, and there was a problem outside with the streets, and the traffic and the parking and the noise, you would not go to the National Hockey League and ask them to resolve the problem. If you had a problem at Exhibition Stadium because there was a championship game with the Blue Jays, you would not go to the American Baseball League to resolve the problem. What I'm saying, the people that run the Racing Commission are involved with racing. The people who have the jurisdiction over the traffic, the streets, and the noise are the municipal politicians.
I'd like to inform the members of the House that the oral question period has expired.